All right, welcome to episode 5 of So What Do You Do? I created this podcast as a way to give out free and public information to college students, professionals looking to make a career shift, and upper management wanting to learn more about early career professionals and their experience in their industries thus far. Today we have my fifth guest, one of my closest friends and hardest workers I know, Jake Haltom. Jake, how are you today?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Aloha. I love the shirt. I love the background. We'll definitely get into where you're located now. They can probably pick it up by now. But my first question for you, and this is the question I ask all my guests, the title of the show, and that is, so what do you do?
I, simply put, am a construction manager, or AKA superintendent, project supervisor. It goes by a couple of names, but pretty much all the same job title.
And how did you first discover this field?
I first discovered it by just working my way into construction. I didn't have your traditional college path, if you will. Out of high school, I went straight into working full time and actually not going to college right away. And that job that I was doing was in the construction field, and in particular, it was heating and air conditioning. And in doing so, that spurred me to pursue further my higher education and actually get into higher education. And I started doing construction management field and pursuing my degree in construction management. And that's kind of what put me on my path. And in pursuing my higher education, it kind of refined my career path and put me on this trajectory that I'm on now.
And how did you, or what first drew you to the field? Like when you first got into working in HVAC, what was the initial thing that made you go, maybe I'll put college to the side for a minute and I want to really try to pursue this and see where this could go?
Really, it's a simple answer. I mean, I could try to come up with some elaborate answer as to why I did, but simply put, man, it's just boy stuff, right? Boys, we like building things, construction. It's just, I was kind of always drawn to it. I was that little kid that always played with Legos, loved doing that stuff. Um, Construction always fascinated me. And then there's also, of course, it's the manly thing to do, right? So I mean, to be honest, that's to put it really simply, that's kind of what drew me into the field. And of course, there's the benefits that come with it. It pays very well. Even entry level positions pay very well. So that was definitely an attraction to the field. But then what started to really get me into wanting to go the management route and pursuing a furthering career in the industry was all of the friends and coworkers that I had slash mentors, if we want to call them that were older heads that had been in there, 40 plus years old, had been working with their hands forever, had kids young, didn't really ever have the opportunity to pursue their higher education to further their career and position in the industry. And all of them really, really looked out for me and kind of gave me that old head advice and wisdom of saying, hey, man, I'm 40, 50 years old now. My back's killing me. I've been doing this for so long, and I want to be able to pick up my grandkids one day, and I'm fearful that I can't because I've been doing this for so long. It takes a toll on my body, and it really does. It's amazing when you see those guys that are 60 years old out there, doing concrete work. It's beyond impressive. But obviously there is the physical toll of it. So they really pushed me, and unfortunately I heeded their advice and was going to school at night, part-time after work every day for a few years, and ended up getting my degree. And actually before I actually got my degree, I got my first management type position in construction, and it was an assistant position, but it was my foot in the door, right? And here I am. Been a superintendent now for a few years, and there's a lot more room to grow, learning stuff every single day. You never stop learning, right? But I'm very glad I went that route. I'm humbled and am empathetic towards those guys that work in the field, and I'm glad that was my first step in the industry, was actually working in the field and working multiple different positions in the field. Because now when I'm out there, I'm not that young guy in the field, on my phone saying, hey, you do this, you do that. And the old guys look at me going, who the hell is this young guy over here barking at me? So I'm really glad I took the route I did.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So it sounds like you sort of went the educational route for the sake of sustainability. Like the people who are around you were like, hey man, if you really want to have longevity in this industry, you should try to do something that's going to be sustainable on your body. And so, when you say that you were taking night classes, could you talk to us a little bit about that? Where were you going to school? What were you studying? And then I'll ask some questions after that. But if you could just kind of break down that what your educational background is and where you went to school.
Yeah, absolutely. So I attended the Los Rios school program. So for those that are familiar and those that are not, Los Rios is the community college district within the Sacramento area, greater Sacramento area, and there's multiple schools within it. Sac City, Consumnes River, American River, etc. There's multiple schools within it, which worked out really well for me, being that I was going at night. And as we all know, when we're signing up for classes in college, sometimes you're getting towards those last few credits that you need. Sometimes getting those credits that you need, those classes that you need, but also to fit your schedule, especially if you're working, presents its own challenge. So the Los Rios school was very beneficial for me, district, excuse me, because I bounced around. I went to a combination of Sac City, American River, and Consumnes River. My degree in construction management is from Consumnes River. They're the only school that actually offers the construction management program. So when you see my degree, it says it's from Consumnes River. But I would say, honestly, the majority of classes I took were at Sac City. Um, and, I took business classes, GE. At first, I wanted to get my business degree. So I actually had a surplus of credits from just taking a lot of business classes. But then also just my other GE classes, kind of just took them, I had, my checklist of classes that I needed to take. And if the one at American River happened to be there available at Tuesday at 5 p.m., that was the one I was taking. So, yeah, just bounced around to those three pretty much.
Okay, so that's really fascinating. So it sounds like you went to several different schools within the Los Rios district, got your associate's degree. Is that right? Is it an associate's in construction management?
Correct. Yeah, I got my associate's degree, did the associate's for transfer program, and went through all that, and then got over to Sac State, and literally very first semester starting to pursue my bachelor's. At the exact same time, I got a promotion to actually be a full-time, or not, excuse me, not a full-time. I was working full-time, but to be moving from assistant superintendent to superintendent, or assistant construction manager to construction manager. The names are interchangeable. But yeah, that's when I got that promotion. So unfortunately, as a result of that promotion, it was also, not backing up someone on a job site. It's here is actually your first job site. And so what that resulted in was, many a days where I'm working 10 hours, even more sometimes when needed, when job sites are opening and really busy, right? So unfortunately, I wasn't, just time-wise, I was not able to continue to pursue my bachelor's. So I proudly say my stinger is halfway up. I'm a college dropout. But I'm very happy. I would love to continue to pursue my higher education if the time ever presents itself. Right now, just unfortunately for me, is not that time. But I'm never a naysayer of higher education. Like I said, I would love to go and pursue more. But right now, when I'm working 50-hour weeks, it's really hard to find the time to live my life, live out my personal life as well as professional life, and find that other time for higher education. But I hope to one day have the time to pursue higher education again.
Yeah, I'm sure all the Stingers, knowing where you're at now, are very proud that you made the choice you did. Um, so one thing you brought up that was pretty interesting was before you even got that associate's degree, you already got your first construction management role. So how necessary do you think an associate's or a bachelor's degree is in the field of construction management to be a successful construction manager?
It's a great question, Kieran. I would say it's not necessary. It's not necessary by any means. With that said, it is very helpful. For me, what it did for me and many others that I've spoken with that have gotten their or are either pursuing their degree in higher education, relating to whether it be just business, construction management, or whatever it may be, and work in the industry with me, it it provides another lens, another perspective to look at the industry through, that you wouldn't just from hands-on in-person experience. To work your way up the ladder, if you will, it definitely isn't necessary to answer your question directly, most of the time, employers that I've found and have worked with, from the larger corporate firms that I was just working with in California to now the smaller general contractor that I work with here in the Aloha State, um, it they're looking much more for experience. The college degree is definitely a plus, no doubt. But to them, it shows more commitment, that you're willing to learn, that you want to further yourself, better yourself. So it's a huge plus, but it's not necessary. But what it does do, to circle back, and also to circle back to something you were alluding to earlier, is talking about, those guys that have just worked with their hands. It's great. It pays well. It'll always pay well. But there's a certain spot where you cap out at, right? Without that higher education, that additional experience to really put you onto that next step. In the field, you can really only work your way up towards a journeyman position if you're in the union, for those familiar with that term, or a foreman type position where, you're a supervisor for guys that work out in the field. But beyond that, it's really hard to make that next step in the business towards those project management, construction management, VP of operation type titles, that really, come with a bigger payday and come with a lot more career advancement opportunities.
So then how were you able to make that jump? So you didn't have the associate's degree yet. How were you able to get into that first role as a junior construction manager?
It's funny. So it's a two-part answer. And to be completely honest and blunt, number one was just product of my environment and circumstance. A guy that I was working under at a job site in Davis, California, up and left, basically, and was just no call, no show, and just never showed up back to work. And so I was at this job site, and we basically were without our leader. And I was familiar with the job site. We didn't have anyone to come in and backfill his position. So here I was at 23 at the time, and it was kind of like, bigwigs look at me and go, all right, Jake, you ready to take this on? And here I was thinking I was kind of just a stopgap measure, right? I was just there, playing leader for the intermediary until someone would come in and backfill his position. But then that back position never got backfilled, and I kind of just got thrust into that position. And don't get me wrong, I was scared, very scared at the time, and very intimidated for sure. Made many mistakes, no doubt. But I wouldn't ask for it to be any other way. In hindsight, I was very glad that was put upon me. But then the second part, to answer your question, was beyond the benefit of beneficiary of circumstance. Was my upper management knew that I was pursuing my higher education at that time, and they knew that this was the path that I wanted to go down. I was taking seriously. I was bettering myself. I wasn't there just to get my paycheck. I really did want to be a better me, if you will, and I wanted to take on more responsibility, and that they identified that in me, and so they gave me the opportunity.
I once heard luck defined as when opportunity meets preparation, and it almost sounds like that perfectly defines your experience. Is, here you were prepared for the opportunity, but then it just kind of presented itself. Here's this guy who's not showing up. It hasn't been backfilled yet, and then you just step up. So I actually never knew that. That's really fascinating that's how you got your first role in that. So you mentioned the Aloha State. We see the beautiful shirt along with the beautiful background, the hang loose. Can you tell us a little bit about where you're located, what you're doing where you're located, and then what you love about your current role?
Absolutely. So I got the opportunity presented to me. Actually, I should say I was put in communications. I didn't necessarily get a job offer. I was put in contact with the company that I'm working for currently. The name of the company is Armstrong Builders. We are located in Honolulu on the island of Oahu, here in Hawaii. Oahu, for those who aren't familiar, is about the third biggest of the islands. However, it's the most populated of all the islands. It's where you would go if I would say 95% of people that live full-time, maybe that number is a little bit high, let's say 90%. 90% of people that live here full-time on the islands live here on Oahu. It has the biggest downtown, high rises, everything you'd expect from a big city. It looks like a big city when you get here. When you fly in on the plane, when you drive out of the airport, it looks like a micro San Diego, if you will. Um, Everything's very dense, right? So the only way you can build is up here. There's not a whole lot of surface area we're working with here on the islands. But yeah, I was put in communications with this company out here, and they presented the opportunity to me, and I took it. I was young, I'm still finding my way in this industry and in my career, and it was a great opportunity to go from working from a big corporate company that spread across multiple states, to working for a smaller. I wouldn't say the company I'm working for is by any means a mom and pop shop, if you will. But it is a small business. We're under 25 employees. We are a general contractor, and it's just a great opportunity. We do very, very, very cool projects. About 80% of our workload is custom homes, both new built from the ground up, as well as remodels and additions, which there's plenty of here on the islands. Many people have vacation homes, etc. here. So it's a great niche to have ourselves in. It's a great market for us. But we also do, and this is where one of the things that really drew me to this company is I had always done single family or multifamily homes. I haven't done any commercial work. And this company I work for now does some commercial work. For example, I have a Starbucks job coming up that I'm going to be working on. We've taken, as many people know, Macy's has gone under in the past, few decades. And so developers have been taking up, the TJ Maxx's, the Macy's of the world. And then now here's these big, huge areas that have prime real estate location, right? They're right in the center of malls most of the time, right in the heart of things always. And it's just a big, huge box, right? And especially now with the advent, or I shouldn't say the advent, excuse me, the popularity of these mixed-use type buildings, right? Where the downstairs is all, bars and restaurants, and upstairs might still be shopping or maybe even apartments. Who knows? Developers are really coming in and acquiring those, and we've done a few of those projects as well. One of the coolest ones that my company did, I wasn't able to be a part of, but I get to look back on it and look forward to us doing something similar, is the University of Hawaii had us build their telescope. We didn't build the telescope. Obviously, that's a very technical specialty contractor, but we built the shell, so those big old geodesic dome-looking things that you see that telescopes sit in. We built that, so that was very cool. And so getting to be a part of that is why I took this opportunity, and that's how I ended up here, Kieran.
I mean, as far as your professional trajectory, I couldn't think of a better roadmap than to, at some point, and maybe long term, end up in the Aloha State doing what you're doing now. So that is, you know how proud I am and happy I am for you. So talking about the perks of the job, let's transition now, maybe not within your role specifically, but as somebody who's now sort of becoming more seasoned as a construction manager, is there anything you would change about the industry? Is there anything about the industry that you don't like?
Absolutely, Kieran. Just like with any industry, there's its pros and its cons, right? The general pros of construction and working in the industry, good pay, a lot of opportunities as far as whether you work in marketing, whether you work on the business side of things, whether you're an operations type person. There's a place in construction for you. I think people get very intimidated by, especially it's very been a male-dominated industry forever, right? We are and have seen great strides taken in the past few years, especially the past decade, as far as women getting involved in construction, especially out in the field. When you used to see no women out in the field at all, now we're starting to see that. So that would be one of the biggest ones, Kieran, is just, kind of taking that stereotype away from the industry. And it's not just a male-dominated, and I know I said at the beginning, what got me into it. It was that boy thing, right? And I think that stereotype still exists. But to now see that it's not just boys is great to see. So that would be one of the biggest things that I would say I would change, but I think we're already seeing change in it. So I wouldn't really put that on my list because I think we're taking great strides in it. I would say to my answer as far as what I want to see change is that I hope that persists and that stays a thing in the industry because we need it. We really need it. We need to be more diversified in our industry, especially. There's a lot of that locker room boy talk, if you will, when you go out into the field, and it's good to see that that's changing. Um, I would say my biggest answer to answer your question directly, as far as what I want to see changed, is along with that stereotype of it being a boy dominated, it's also an industry that takes a while to adapt to technological change. When we're seeing industries around us, really take on and accept, the new software programs, hardware to advance their company forward. Construction and the construction industry in general is one that falls behind in that. Companies I was working for before, and even this one now, there's still a lot of archaic type things that we, practices and systems that we have in place. That would amaze you. It's whether it just be accounting being on paper, schedules being put on paper and then scanned and then emailed out, versus utilizing a software program. Those things are slowly starting to creep in, and we're starting to see those changes, which is great. But I would like it to see be more widely accepted. And the hard part of it too is, now that people are starting to accept them and utilize those new softwares and technologies that are being geared towards the construction industry, is you have a lot of things that are still in kind of beta testing, if you will. So you don't have a proficient, to use a great example, like a Microsoft package, right? Where they have spreadsheets and PowerPoint. And of course we utilize those, right? Just like any business. But as far as, certain, industries have software programs that are geared towards them that are pretty widely accepted. And so they're used everywhere, right? Whereas in construction, you have so many startups that have all these software programs kind of in like these kind of, they're out there, but they're still very much in beta. But also it's, as a general contractor, we're the ones that are going to be, saying, hey, we're using this software program, but subcontractor A over here and subcontractor B and C, they may use them, may not. They might use a different program, and so the compatibility of everything right now just doesn't jive. So you still end up going back to those old school, archaic methods of, scanning PDFs over to each other and stuff like that, instead of having a software program that communicates between all these different companies. So, in a nutshell, I would say just evolving on the technology front is something the construction industry really needs to get ahead on and needs to work towards.
Yeah, it's really fascinating you say that. First, I want to make a quick comment. I'm just happy to hear that the diversification of construction management and construction in general is something that we're starting to see more of. But it's really fascinating that you bring up technology, because in episode 2, I interviewed a tech salesman, and his industry is he works for a company called Service Titan, and they specifically try to sell technological software to more blue collar industries, HVAC companies, plumbing, trucking, construction. So it's interesting now to sort of see both sides of it. It seems like a pretty similar interest as far as what he's trying to do and what you guys are trying to receive. You brought up sort of this advancement into technology, which brings up my next question sort of perfectly. What do you feel like when looking at employment specifically? What do you feel like the future of employment for construction management looks like? Do you think there's going to be a continuation and growth of jobs, or is it something where there might not be as many jobs, it's starting to get fulfilled by other things? How do you feel about future employment in regards to your industry?
It's an industry where we're already hugely in demand. It's been an industry both in the field with physical workers, hands-on workers, as well as on the management side of things that we've been in a shortage of for decades. Really, when you talk to the people that have been in the industry longer than I have, it really started back in the last recession, 2008, 2010. A lot of the folks that were in it, especially the guys and gals that were out in the field, the actual craftsmen of the world, really kind of left the industry, right? They were older, already almost at that retirement age, left, and we, as a society, especially in America, did a really poor job of educating our generation as well as the generation right before us of being in the trades. I mean, I'll ask you, Kieran, I know you're the interviewer here, but I'll ask you, when you talk to your parents, right, they had wood shop in school, they had automotive classes in school, they had all sorts of things. We didn't really have those opportunities. Am I wrong?
No, right, absolutely.
So I think that those things weren't, the importance of them was never drilled into us as a generation, and it wasn't a priority. It was taken away, and so um, those kind of skills were being learned later on. The motivation to work on those things, the interests, were taken away. So we're in a huge shortage. To answer give the part one answer, we're in a huge need. There's certain parts, I guess, that you'll say of the industry that are going to be able to be automated. So in that sense of the answer, taken away from, like, we're seeing the advent of things like 3D printed homes and those kind of things. But you still have to have an operator there operating the machinery that prints the home, right? All the way from the factories, of course, we're an industry that relies heavily on manufacturing, right? All the way from things that on the concrete, the framing, the lumber, the tile, the stone, all these things, windows, all come from factories, right? So in that sense, yes, that part of the industry is, of course, being more automated, and maybe jobs are being lessened. But I won't speak to that because that's not really the construction industry. That's just a part of it, right? I would say, to answer your question, Kieran, is no, we're in a huge need, and it's going to only continue to grow exponentially, in my belief, as well. We're already, as we all know, in a huge housing crisis. We have so many, as far as inventory of homes, we're in a huge shortage, and that's one of the small, or I should say, one of the big reasons as to why housing prices have inflated so much over the years. Is supply is here and demand is way here, right? Basic economics. I'm no economic expert, but anybody can tell you, just by looking at that, obviously prices are going to go through the roof when supply is way down here and demand's way up here. So to get ahead on that and start curving the ball back in the consumer's favor, we need to build more homes. The commercial construction industry is probably lessening just because the amount of remote work we're seeing. We don't need a lot of brick and mortar, offices anymore. There's not as much space. But the industry I'm going to start seeing, and I foresee, I should say, excuse me, a huge demand for construction managers is beyond the new homes, new construction, is redevelopment. We're starting to come to a point in time where we're seeing the vast importance of climate change, the effect that new construction has on climate change and the environment around it. It's going out and clear cutting a forest to build new homes. We now know isn't the best way to do things. It's not good for the environment. So redevelopment is a huge thing. We have so many great examples of why redevelopment is crucial. You being in LA, Kieran, is a perfect example of this. How many places were once thriving areas that are now just kind of desolate, remote, ghettos, if you will, that have just been abandoned, and because development for the bottom line for the developer, the cheaper route to go was to go out and clear cut that forest versus going to this old abandoned area that was now desolate and redeveloping it. So that's going to take its own set of expertise, and I see that being the way of the future, because developers now not only are being incentivized to go that route for the environmental benefit of it, but also the simple fact that for their bottom line, if we're going to speak to their pocketbook, there's only so much more land that we can buy and build on new now. So we're developers beyond just as we would hope to see, that they want to always do what's right for the environment. At the end of the day, business is business, and they're going to do what benefits their bottom line the most, unfortunately. But that's just the reality of business. So we're getting towards a point where it's gonna have to be where it's gonna make more financial sense for them to do redevelopment as opposed to new developments, and that's gonna take a massive effort in the construction management field to figure out more efficient systems and processes to do redevelopment. Huge effort on the government's sake, because redeveloping land takes a lot more governmental work. Rezoning things, rezoning areas that used to be like Mather Field for our Sacramento market. Everyone is very familiar with Mather Field, an old abandoned Air Force base, and now they're building homes on it. Well, that was a 10+ year effort just on the government side of things before the first shovel was even put in the ground to start building those homes, as far as rezoning the district, rezoning it to be housing instead of industrial. Then you have all this abatement work that has to happen, or the rail yards, another perfect example. You have to go in and amend all that soil, make it buildable, right? So there's a huge opening for in this industry for not only people working out in the field, but construction managers as well.
Wow. Yeah, that was a really thorough answer. I guess I didn't even consider sort of the environmental consultation that will take place in future employment, along with, maybe some of the some maybe on the supply side, it might be able to be automated, but physical work's always going to be in demand. And then, yeah, it almost feels like it becomes more nuanced now amongst our generation, because I feel like, at least amongst the professionals I know, less and less people are going the trades route, and more people are trying to go into the technological or just corporate route. And so yeah, it seems like there's going to be more opportunity there. So one thing I really wanted to ask you, just because I feel like you do have a unique path, a unique trajectory in this industry, and that is, if there was somebody who wanted to do exactly what you're doing right now, there's a young person in construction who wants to go the management route, what advice would you give them?
I would say, tie your hip and tie your rope, if you will, hitch your wagon to the right people. It really is. It's an old cliche. We've all heard it before, and sometimes it's stupid, but it really is speaks a lot of truth. It's not what you know, it's who you know. It really is. I would say a lot of my advancement has been from those people that I've hitched my wagon to, and they've brought me along with them. But as a result of being with those people, I've gotten to learn new things, and so that whole what you know portion of it has grown vastly for me by being around those people. Um, I would say, for someone that was in the field, to answer your question, Kieran, I would say, a young guy, if I'm talking to myself at, 18, 19, when I was out in the field, if I was speaking to myself and would have given myself advice on how I got where I am now, I would say, step one, tie yourself to good people. That guy that's on the job site, that's your supervisor, if he's an a-hole and you don't like him and you don't like how he treats people, then don't hitch your wagon to him. But maybe one of the more experienced guys on the job site, you really like him, you like his work ethic, you like what he does, tie your hip to him and see, like, hey man, how'd you get here? What would you advise me to do? I see that you're doing great, you're great at this, and not to discredit you know you, or but say, I don't want to work out in the field forever. I don't want to be the guy with a tool bag on when the time I'm 45. I don't want to be that guy that's hurting my back to pick up my grandkids when I'm 60. What would you recommend that I do? And those guys always said to me, and what I would say to the guys that are younger than me is, go pursue your higher education. Go do it. And whether it be, like I said, I just happened to go and get a construction management degree, but even if you go just get a business admin degree, you go get a communications degree, any of those things, going and pursuing your higher education is always going to give you a different perspective into the industry you're working in, and it's always going to give you be a beneficiary of advancement for you in your field, regardless of what your field is. So I would say definitely pursue higher education if you can, and for those that can't, like I said, I would go back to my answer number one, is just tie your hip and tie your wagon to those people that you like and you admire, and let them know that. Don't be bashful to say, hey, I really like what you do. I would like to do exactly what you do in 5-10 years, whatever the case may be. Or I really like what you do. I want to advance. I don't know exactly where I want to advance. But what would you recommend? How do I put myself in a position to further advance my career and not just show up and earn a paycheck? How do I show up, learn every day, apply myself every day, take on new responsibilities, put myself in that position to allow opportunities to come my way from my managers, to show that I'm worthy of those new responsibilities, and in turn get some career advancement out of it.
I think that's really great advice. Almost from, like, you hear from a literal perspective in the trades, like, you go in and you do this like apprenticeship and you move your way up, but also from like the figurative sense, like, even if that's not your literal title, find who is where you want to be and attach your hip to them, like you said. I think that's really great advice. And then, of course, pursuing the next level of education. So this is my last question for you. This is the last question for all my guests. Again, you know how happy and proud I am of you and all your success in the industry thus far. The first question was, so what do you do? My last question will be, so what do you, or what, so what will you do next?
What will I do next? That's a great question. I wish I knew the answer to that. No, I'm kidding. Um, I'm going to continue to do what I'm doing now. I love being a construction manager. I learn something new every day. It is one of the most humbling jobs, right? It's truly a title that embodies the jack of all, master of none cliche. Because I really am, right? Yes, I have my background of heating and air conditioning, but I'm not a framer. I'm not a concrete guy. I'm not a heating and air guy. I'm not a trim carpenter. I'm not a tile set. I'm none of those things. So I learn from those guys that are masters of those crafts every single day, and it makes me better at my job, humbles me every single day, and gives me more empathy towards those around me every single day. And not only gives me more empathy towards them and humbles me towards what they do and how hard workers these guys and gals are, but it also just humbles me into how complex and how cool humans are. It's really easy to lose faith in humanity these days with all the amount of bad news that we see constantly. But when I get to sit back and let's just use a single family home project for example, just to sit back and look back 2 years, in hindsight, from when a project hasn't even started yet, or still in planning, contract negotiations with the future homeowners, the clients, whatever you want to call them, and then sit here today, and the day that I'm handing them keys to their brand new remodeled home or brand new home we just built for them, and go, holy shit, this was such a complex project and involved so many moving pieces, from the homeowners themselves and bugging them for decisions and things that they need to make every single day, and bugging them for money all the time. So at the end of the day, it's money makes the world go round, right? The designers that designed it, the architects, the engineers that made the structure possible, to the guys that were actually out there building the house and putting these designs and everything that were drawings on a piece of paper now into physical form. And to all the way to the guys and gals at the end that cleaned the house and turned it over and made sure that the homeowners were happy into their brandly new built house. It's also clean. I mean, just those simple things really humble me when I look back at a project. So it's awesome. But what do I want to do, Kieran? The reason I really got into this industry, to be honest with you, and why I've stayed in it, is there's great opportunity beyond just the career itself. You really get to, what I want to do is get into the land development / property holdings side of things. You'll see a lot of the guys and gals that have been in this industry and own their own contracting companies that have been in it for a long time. What they tend to do, and the route that they tend to go, for those that really want to make a lot of money and leave a big legacy behind, is they get into the development side of things and property holding side of things. And being on the GC side of things, you get an intimate knowledge of how projects work, instead of being just an investor, let's say, that comes in with a big pocketbook and says, I want to build this building. Or I just bought this land, I want to build this building and now rent it out and sit there and make the money, over years by owning this building and renting it out to, let's say it's an apartment building. Great, you're going to make money. More than likely, you're going to make good money. But if you can have an intimate understanding of how the project and the process of a project actually works, you can avoid a lot of headache, you can avoid a lot of issues on the upfront end, and you get to really control the project from A to Z much better. So in addition to just being an investor and being the primary investor, you also get to understand, and you get a better ROI, basically, is really what I'm getting at here. And you make the project run a lot more smoothly. But beyond that, I've always looked at and revered the guys and gals that have large land holdings, and I've always been in amazement when I drive by a building and I've been with people and be like, oh yeah, I own that building. Like, to me, that is the most badass thing to say. Like, you're driving downtown, you're hanging out with some buddies, going around, and you're eating in some, let's say mixed use building like we were talking about earlier, and be like, man, this building's really cool. They did a great job on this. To be like, oh yeah, this project's really cool. Like, yeah, this is my building. Like, that would be so sick to say. That'd be so cool to say. And as far as just a lasting legacy portion of it, to be able to leave that to my kids, and to my friends and family, to be able to say, like, I built this area. I really was a pioneer in shaping the culture around us by owning this building, by owning this land. And I put my thumbprint on it. And like I alluded to earlier, developers in the past haven't been the most environmentally friendly. If I could be the guy that is now building new developments, whether it be a subdivision, whether it just be a shopping center, or even just a single home, to be able to look at it back when I'm 80, 90 on my deathbed and, being that old grandpa, with my cane in hand, telling, old war stories to my grandkids, to be able to say I did everything I can to do this development and do so in a way that's not only good for the environment, both the earth, but also for the culture around us, and just being a better place that is conducive to a healthy environment for humans, is something that is what I want to live my life for. I mean, I think there's so much power in doing something like that. So to not be long-winded anymore, to give you my answer in short, Kieran, I would say, what do I want to do next is I want to start getting into that investor land development side of things. And that takes a long time, but that's the route I eventually want to go. I'll never leave construction management. You'll always be a construction manager when you're in this industry. Whether you're the guy that's 65 and you now own a land development company, you're still managing construction. You are still doing that. But to work in my way into that field, or that area of this field, there's a lot more money to be made in it. There's a lot bigger legacy that you can leave in doing so, and that's the route I want to go.
That's a beautiful answer. Yeah, and I love that you keep bringing up this, the idea of just being environmentally sound. That's how you see the future. That's how you see your legacy. And as somebody who has seen you own multiple homes and seen you sort of progress in your life, and now you're living in probably one of the most desirable places you could live in the world, I have no doubt that you will get on the land ownership side and have so much continued success. So thank you so much for your time today. Again, I know I've said it. I'm happy for you. I'm proud of you. I will continue to say it. And aloha.
Much love, brother. Much love. Thank you for having me, man. Love talking to you.